Imagine a world without pain, death, or suffering. A paradise where humans lived in perfect harmony with God. Then, in one moment, with one single bite, everything changed forever. This is the story of humanity's first sin, and it's not what you think. Welcome back to Rise Higher. Today we're diving deep into one of the most misunderstood stories in the Bible, the account of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Most people think this is just about an apple, but the real story is far more profound and relevant to our lives today than you might realize. So let's travel back to the beginning, to a time when heaven and earth were one. The Bible tells us that God created a perfect garden called Eden. In Hebrew, means delight or pleasure. This wasn't just any garden, it was paradise on earth. In this garden, God placed the first humans, Adam and Eve. They lived in perfect relationship with God, with each other, and with all creation. There was no shame, no fear, no death. But in the center of this paradise stood two significant trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And God gave them one simple command. Of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it you shall surely die. Now, here's where many people get confused. The Bible never actually says it was an apple. That's a later tradition. What matters isn't the type of fruit, but what it represented. Enter the serpent, described as more cunning than any beast of the field. And notice his strategy. He doesn't start with a direct attack on God. He starts with a simple question. Has God indeed said, "You shall not eat of every tree of the garden"? This is brilliant psychological manipulation. He's not denying God's command, he's making Eve question whether she heard it correctly. He's planting seeds of doubt. Then comes the direct lie, "You will not surely die." Finally, the appeal to human pride. You will be like God, knowing good and evil. And here's the tragic moment. The Bible says Eve saw that the tree was good for food, pleasant to the eyes, and desirable to make one wise. She took of its fruit and ate, and gave also to her husband who was with her, and he ate. For the first time in human history, people hid from God. When God called out, "Where are you?" it wasn't because he didn't know where they were. It was giving them a chance to confess, to take responsibility. But instead of confession, we see the first blame shifting. Adam blames Eve and even implies it's God's fault. "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate." Eve blames the serpent. The consequences were severe. Pain in childbirth, difficulty in work, broken relationships, and ultimately, death entered the world. They were expelled from Eden, cut off from the tree of life. But here's what makes this story so profound. This wasn't really about food at all. It was about trust, obedience, and the fundamental question, will humans trust God's wisdom, or will they decide for themselves what's right and wrong? The tree of the knowledge of good and evil represented humanity's choice to become their own moral authority instead of trusting God's guidance. It was the first act of rebellion against divine authority. And here's what's remarkable, even in judgment, God showed mercy. He made clothing for them, he promised a future redeemer, and he prevented them from eating from the tree of life in their fallen state, which would have trapped them in sin forever. This story isn't just ancient history. It's the human condition. Every day, we face the same choice Adam and Eve faced. Will we trust God's way, or will we decide for ourselves what's right and wrong? The story of the forbidden fruit isn't just about humanity's fall, it's about God's love and the promise of redemption. It reminds us that our choices matter, that God's commands are for our good, and that even when we fail, God's mercy is greater than our sin. What do you think? How do you see this ancient story applying to modern life? Let me know in the comments below. If this video helped you understand the Garden of Eden story better, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more biblical insights. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.